Okay, so for prep on this vehicle, pretty standard. I do a clay bar with, a pink silicone spray, and then we clean it after with isopropyl alcohol. Make sure you get all of that off, otherwise your edges aren't gonna stick very well. This car is pretty clean, so not too much crazy stuff we have to do. Now, every car is different, every shop is different, but as far as disassembly for us, for this particular car, doing a color change, we are gonna take off our bumpers, we're gonna take off our taillights, we're gonna get into the door panels, do our handles and mirrors, get those off, these fender markers, and the bumpers, and probably that antenna. So that's just my preference. Every car is different. It depends what color you're covering, but for me to do a good job the way that I want to, that's what I'm gonna take off. And then emblems. When I do any color changes, I pre-measure all my panels and I basically math it out on a piece of paper and Tetris everything together to cut everything as efficiently as possible. Keep in mind you want to have bleed on these. So what I mean by bleed, this is the exact size is 19, but generally I'm going to give 2 to 3 inches on each side. So I'm actually going to cut this at like 26, 27. If I'm measuring a bumper, especially by myself, I just go from center point, come out here, and I go about 4 to 5 inches past the edge. So we're gonna say like 50 times that by 2, so 100. So this panel is gonna be about 25 by 100. This is how my math sheets look. I've been doing it this way since I've been wrapping. I literally have like hundreds of these papers. Pretty much I know down to the square inch what I need in film, and I'm making sure that I'm being efficient, which is also gonna save me money and the customer money. Also, I just like to not have any surprises and be prepared. So that's just me being anal. I list everything on the car with bleed. I do height by length in inches. And then this film in particular is 60 feet, which is 720 inches. And basically I kind of map everything out on here. Keep in mind with vinyl and PPF, there are certain films that are directional. And what that means is if you have a panel this way and you turn it this way, it doesn't look the same. The tone is different. It's gonna be really common with like pearls, shade shifts, iridescence. Usually flat colors, you're okay, but better safe than sorry, I usually cut them all directional. And we just mark on the backing paper which direction is up for us. So what that means is that if you have a panel like this, 30 by 54, you're not gonna flip it and cut 54 by 30, if that makes sense. So I'm just gonna map all this out, and then basically anyone can hop on the table and start cutting for me. All right, so we are gonna be using the Inozetek Gloss Ruby Star Colored PPF Dry Apply. Now keep in mind, they have their regular color change films, which are like polymeric hybrid calendared films. I generally say those are 1 to 3 year films. This is colored PPF, so we generally say these are 7 to 10 year films. So make sure that you're ordering the right stuff when you get on their website because they have same colors, different categories of film. This is a 60-foot roll. General rule of thumb, I mean, this Miata's tiny. It only uses about 38, 40 feet or something. But most vehicles, you're gonna wanna do 75 feet of film. So if you're doing like a standard 4-door sedan, more than likely you're gonna need close to 75 feet. So you need to do a 60 and an additional 15 feet, which you can custom order from them. If we do like trucks or SUVs, I pretty much automatically just do 30 yards, which is gonna be 90 feet of film. I'd rather have the extra, or you can math out the car beforehand and figure out exactly what you need, but you should always order just a little bit more, just in case. If you're doing like a motorcycle or something like that, full fairing bikes, I generally order 5 yards and it's more than enough. So 15 feet will do you plenty. For all of the glossy films, most of the time they're gonna have a cover sheet. So if the film feels very like sturdy and kind of rigid, it's that cover sheet. This is for packaging purposes for the most part, to try to prevent orange peel and scratching and that kind of stuff. I basically remove all of this and then I cut the film. You do have to be careful because if you pull this out and you don't keep tension on this roll, you're gonna get what's called tunneling, which is where the film comes off the backing plastic and creates these tunnels, and like those marks and stuff don't go away. So I usually find it best to just remove the whole cover sheet and then cut, and I'm good with that. So we're gonna do that. It's gonna get very staticky. So I just cut all these individually. I roll it with the color out. Out, shot. And then what I'll do is I'll mark up. I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna dictate what is up on these. That's just a little bit of overkill. Like I said, some colors are directional, some are not, but I usually just better safe than sorry. For slip, I like using the Flexi Shield foam application. Works really nice. It's just probably my favorite. You only use about an ounce of this for one of these, and I usually put warm water in here. And then I've got my rinse, which is just distilled water with just a cap full of alcohol, just a tiny little dash. I don't need a steamer yet, but if I do need heat, I'm gonna use my pressure on demand steamer. But let's dive into the install. All right, so just spraying the surface with our slick, spraying the back of the film with the slick, spraying Mike with the slick. We're just gonna full pull this and glass it out. So hold on to it for me. All right, so I've got this flat face tacked. Gonna pull the rest of this with some stretch. Suck that up. I would say with the gloss film, it's gonna be a little bit more rigid than the, a matte metallic from their line. You could probably just get away with installing this with just a little bit of water instead of slick, because you see I'm having a little bit of a harder time getting it to stick once I want it to, so I'm gonna have to rinse that out. You could try it that way. I mean, the whole goal is in theory, this film is meant to be dry applied, and yes, you can install it dry applied, but it's gonna take a little longer. You're gonna fight it a little bit more, and you can potentially get some glue lines. So if you do the surface slicked and wet, it's gonna lay down really fast, and then you're gonna let it dry and then just dry trim the edges like vinyl. So it's kind of like a hybrid install. So I've got a majority of the surface laid. Took about 5 minutes. I'm gonna just hit all the edges with rinse, and then I'm just gonna leave it alone and just let it dry before I trim anything. Second panel, I'm gonna try it with just my rinse, which is basically just water. See if I like that a little bit better, just because it was a little bit too slick for me. So I'm just kind of adjusting as I go and figure out what works best with this particular film and finish. Go ahead and set your side. We're gonna use a little bit of steam as well with our pressure on demand, just to give us that initial stretch that we want. And then I'm just gonna pull long ways and set that and glass it out.
So with this film, I'm kind of still learning the way I want to install it. So the other door I did a little bit different. I did from the top down. I ran into a problem where I wish I would have got a little bit more stretch. So on this door, I'm just gonna full pull the door because it's wet, and I'll be able to pull one side, tack that, pull the other side, tack that, and I'll get a little bit of a stretch on here. And that's gonna help the install go a lot smoother.
We are gonna start trimming everything. I like to dry trim it like it's vinyl. I think that's the easiest way to do it. Keep in mind with this colored PPF, it is gonna feel a little more like springy, kind of elastic. So it feels a little bit different when you're cutting it compared to vinyl. Also, you're gonna need to go through a lot of blades. Anytime you start getting any kind of resistance or start getting choppy cuts, break a blade. Don't be afraid to run through blades. In particular, I have two blades that I really like to use. I have the samurai knife, which is this little baby guy. Yes. And then I also have the My Wrap Game knife, very fancy. This is a 30-degree blade, so you can kind of see the difference here. This is really good for getting into deep spots. This is really good for surface cutting. I recommend that you do a couple of practice cuts on backing paper with the PPF to make sure you're not cutting in too deep. Obviously, you don't want to cut the paint. With this type of colored PPF, you can usually also get away with using a knifeless tape. I recommend the 3M Precision line. That's going to be the knifeless tape that has the metal wire in it instead of the string tinsel in it, and that will usually cut this okay. Sometimes you get jagged cuts, so I prefer to just do it by hand. Memento. Technical difficulties. Okay. Another little hint with this film, if you have the film off the surface and you overheat it when you're trimming and post heating, you can actually get this really weird looking thing on it. You need to be careful. I don't know what you'd call it, but you almost like burn the surface. Let me show you. Without burning my hands preferably. Let me hang it like right there. Can you see it right? Okay. So if I like sit too long on this, there it is. See that? Now, it seems like when it only really happens when the film is off the surface or if you just crazy overheat it. So be careful about that. Also, when it comes to installing or post-heating, you don't want to use a torch. What happens is when the torch hits the surface of this, it's going to burn off the hydrophobic top coat, which is like what you want from the clear bra. So don't use a torch during the install or the post-heat. Other than maybe sometimes you'll see PPF installers burning corners down and kind of melting that PPF down. Just be careful that you don't get this weird stuff going on. Okay, so now that we've done our first full exterior color change in the Inozetek Colored PPF, which is wet or dry apply, let's talk about a summary of the takeaway points. Number one.
What's your thought?
It installs better wet. Yes, you can do it dry.
Yes.
It's gonna be higher tack. You're gonna fight it a little bit more. You could get lines.
There's certain things you can do dry, like smaller pieces, inlays,
handles,
stuff like that. Handles I did dry, mirrors I did dry. So smaller stuff like that saves time to do it dry.
Sure, but it does end up looking better. You have less lines or imperfections if you do it wet.
At least misted with water.
Yeah. Then moving into our slick solutions. Don't do full on slick like clear bra.
Too much.
It's too much. We tried it. It's a little too much.
It's in the
Adapt.
air channels.
It works better to do mostly water. You can have a dash of slick in there.
Sometimes I add slick depending on if I need it or not.
Yeah, you kind of just have to feel it as you go and adapt to it.
Yeah.
To whatever works better.
That's kind of what I was adding it if I needed it there, but most of the time it was just water.
Number 3 is gonna be trimming. Best to do it dry. So install the surface wet, dry trim like it's vinyl.
You can trim wet, but I prefer to do it dry because it sticks better, it holds better once you're dry. And then also when you're heating, if you do pre-cut it and heat the film, it does wrap itself. I mean, it really does, as long as you have your tensions right.
Right. Also with heat, another good point, don't use your torch on the surface. It will burn off the hydrophobic top coat. Heat gun for trimming side and post heating, but for install, hot water or a steamer, pressure on demand steamer.
Yes. If you are post heating and you have a piece of vinyl that's not on a surface,
you get that weird wrinkle thing.
It burns really quick.
Be careful.
And it wrinkles instantly and it can't fix it.
Yes. And then last but not least, understand that this film is not going to stretch and hold the same way that vinyl will, so when in doubt, seam it out. Also, when in doubt, edge seal it out.
Edge seal, and I would use a promoter.
Adhesive promoter on like corners and stuff.
Pro-Bond worked really well for this.
Yep. So that's just how we figured it out, what worked best for us. You guys can drop a comment, let us know what you think of the film as well. Inozetek is where it's at. Make sure when you guys go onto their website to buy film that you are buying the right stuff. So they have the colored PPF, but then they also have their line of the polymeric hybrid calendared film, which is the 1 to 3 year. This is like a 7 to 10 years, basically what we say. And if you guys want to see more tutorials, make sure you drop a comment. We'll try to do another one on this, but we'll see how it goes.
We'll see.
All right,
we shall
bye.
see. Later.